Alright folks, welcome back to Papa Hobbs' Dirty Dishes. On today's episode, we will be making my most famous dirty dish. It is the oven-baked baby back ribs, okay? So here we have a full rack of baby back ribs. What we're gonna do today is we're gonna make a nice dry rub, we're gonna coat them, and then we're gonna oven bake them for a total of 2.5 hours. Which is gonna make them extremely fall off the bone, and by the time they're done, they're gonna look and taste like they were cooked on the grill. All right, so pro tips. I'm gonna teach you a few pro tips when you're making ribs, okay? Number one is whenever you're making anything barbecue related, your food will only be as good as what you're drinking while you're making it, all right? This is a pro tip, as Gus Gonzalez would say. Today, I have chosen Sam Adams New England IPA. It's a personal favorite, very hoppy, very citrusy. When your soul's happy, the food's happy, okay? And now, here is a must when you're making ribs, and a lot of people don't know this pro tip. Camera, will you come a little closer for me? So, your rack of ribs, they have a very thin membrane on the bottom half. You wanna go ahead and take a look? This white right here is your membrane. You see how that one spot's a little more red? The membrane's been taken off. And what the membrane does is it holds the meat together. It makes your meat a little bit tougher, pretty much. If you're getting your food from like a neighborhood butcher or a professional butcher, chances are every rack of ribs they butcher, they actually take this off for you. But if you're getting your ribs from like a supermarket like Publix, Walmart, Target, Aldi, etc., most cases this membrane's here. Okay, so I'm gonna show you how to take it off. This is one of the more difficult parts. I recommend watching me do it. If you ever want to make ribs and make sure you get it perfectly, you can also watch a professional do it on YouTube because they can even give you more tips, okay? But what you need is a knife. And what you do is you kind of, like this end right here, that's going to be a hard end to find the membrane. Over here, it's a little easier. So usually you're able to slide your knife. I actually got a little head start. And you see how that's kind of coming off right there? That's the membrane. So what you're going to do is you're going to grab a hold of it. And you can actually peel it. Fun fact, this is the easiest it's ever been for me. But I have done it a few times now, so. You see that right there? This disgusting piece of flesh is what makes the difference between great ribs and mediocre ribs. Not mediocre, but nice, tender, fall off the bone ribs. In fact, you can mess up the recipe, and if you get this part right, your ribs will at least be fall off the bone and tender, okay?
That's insane in the membrane.
All right, welcome back to Papa Hobbs Dirty Dishes, okay? So this next part of the Papa Hobbs baby back ribs entree I'm making is time to lather this bad boy up with a homemade dry rub. Now this dry rub is the part of this recipe where you really have the most freedom to freelance, okay? The one core ingredient that I will always put in every single dry rub, brown sugar, okay? Brown sugar because it adds a little bit of sweetness to the meat, but brown sugar also because once it's in that oven and it's heating up, that brown sugar starts to melt a little bit and it can give the ribs kind of like a sticky tendency. So if you're somebody that just likes dry rub and you don't really like to lather it in barbecue sauce, by using a considerable amount of brown sugar mixed with other seasonings, the sweetness won't be overpowering, but that sugar is going to melt a little bit and will give you like the glaze. You know, I personally love sticky ribs, and if you use enough brown sugar, that's what you get, okay? But the key is mixing it with other seasonings that are more zingy and spicy and salty, so you don't get a super sweet rack of ribs, okay? So what I personally like to do is I do a little bit of that brown sugar, I do some adobo, like every good boy with a Latin background, a little bit of garlic powder. This is where me and my wife's cultures collide together. You know, we got the Italian garlic, South American Goya adobo, some steak seasoning, and some cayenne pepper, okay? So, you start out with the need of some brown sugar. I don't like to measure out my my recipes, just because I kind of just like to add to it till I think it's right. So we start out with some brown sugar, as you can see. Next, we're going to hit it with some adobo. Don't be too scared about putting too much, because it's going to get spread out pretty well on the ribs. We're gonna hit it with some garlic powder. Some steak seasoning. Again, don't be scared about how much you put, 'cause it's all gonna get blended together, and the combination of the sweet from the brown sugar and the pepper and saltiness really counters each other. And then some cayenne pepper, okay? Now with cayenne pepper, it is very hot, so you don't want to put too much of it. This will, if you put a lot of it, you're gonna have a spicy rack of ribs. I don't put too much, I just put about that much. Then the last thing I'm gonna put, which I don't have out here right now, is some paprika. Paprika's great. And then, one thing you can't go wrong with is a little extra salt, okay? Then what you do is, just put your hand in, and you make sure it's all nice and mixed together. And after you have it mixed in, one of the best ways you can tell is if it's if you have it seasoned enough. Take a little smell. Smells good. Perfect. So now what you do is you go back to your ribs. Remember to have a good drink, enjoy your time while you cook. Then, this next part is where it gets a little down and dirty, okay? You gotta massage this into the meat. For the next 5 minutes, you have to be a professional masseuse, and this pig is this rack of rib, that's your patient. So, start by grabbing a decent amount. Okay. And then you just really want to rub it and massage it deep into that meat, as deep as you can go. You don't want to go too deep because then you're going to break it, but you're going to start breaking the consistency of the meat itself. But you want it to make sure that at least every single surface of this rack has been touched by you.
That's what she said.
That's what she said. If you feel like you need more, don't be scared to add more. And we're going to do the same thing on the bottom half as well. Now, after you season this and you put this dry rub on it, what a lot of people want to do is they want to let this rack sit in their fridge and marinate in this. Don't do that. You see, a lot of people, they like to roll their baked potatoes in salt when they cook them, because the salt is going to draw out all the fluid from the potato to make it nice and fluffy. That's great with potatoes, but with meat, you're basically drawing out all the natural juice from the meat, so you don't want to do that. So this is what it should look like when you're done putting that dry rub in. You see how almost every single surface has been hit with it. Now you're gonna flip it over and do the same to the other side. Welcome back to Papa Hoff's Dirty Dishes. Today we're working on the ribs, and this next step we're gonna do is a very crucial part, okay? So camera, please come over here. Okay, so the way we cook these, we've preheated the oven to 375. This next part is crucial to the success of your ribs. What we're gonna do is we're gonna wrap it in tin foil. So I've already gotten ourselves a nice baking sheet, as you can see, and I laid out a nice sheet of foil. And what you wanna do is you wanna make sure that this entire surface area of these ribs are covered, and covered tightly. The reason it has to be covered very tight is because this foil is what's going to trap the moisture in there. And by trapping the moisture in there, that's what's going to make your ribs very fall off the bone. You see, a lot of people don't like oven baked ribs because they come out tough and dry. But the reason they come out tough and dry is because most people wouldn't use the foil. They would just put it in a sheet like this and put it in the oven with no cover, and all that moisture escapes. But when you wrap it like this, you're trapping all the moisture. So what I do is I wrap it, then I take more foil just to make sure that no moisture gets away, and I make a layer that goes over the entire pan. Now with these huge pans, there's going to be times where one sheet won't cover the whole pan, kind of like this. But what you can do is you can pat around like that, and it does the trick just the same, okay? So then you take it, you put it in your oven. All right, so what you're gonna do is you put them in the oven. Our microwave unfortunately doesn't have a good timer, so we're gonna use our oven's timer. And you go ahead and you time it for about 1 hour and 45 minutes, okay? So I'm just gonna go ahead and set that. Okay, and then you just let it sit and you let the oven do the work for 1 hour and 45 minutes. This is great because it's minimum work for you. It's pretty much just prep time and letting the oven cook. Oh, I didn't see you there. Oh, that's right, you're here for the ribs. What do you say we go take a check? All right, so it's been about 1 hour and 45 minutes and these ribs are now ready for the next step, okay? So if you come take a look, right here at this point is where you have to make a decision, okay? You can either finish these ribs in the oven. I personally prefer it that way, it's a little easier, or you can finish them on the grill. Now, if I was gonna finish them on the grill, I probably would have cut it into thirds before doing this, just because, as you can see, this is already very tender meat. So it's gonna be very hard to transport this whole thing onto the grill unless you get, 2 tongs underneath. So now we're gonna hit it with some barbecue sauce, okay? What I personally do a blend of Berman's barbecue sauce. I got Texas style and Kansas City, okay? So we're gonna start with some Texan style barbecue sauce on the top. Okay. We're gonna hit it with some more of the Kansas City sauce. You can either use a brush or a rubber scraper. Both of those work very good in spreading the sauce around. And then basically you're just gonna flip it over and do the same on the bottom side. Welcome back to Papa Hoff's Dirty Dishes. As you can see, camera please, Giselle. Everybody, I wanna give it up to my beautiful wife for being a great camera woman. These ribs are absolutely smothered. I wanna show you how fall off the bone these ribs really are. Look at this. Completely clean. So now what we're gonna do is we're gonna take this, and it goes right back into the oven like this, uncovered, for 20 minutes. After 20 minutes, these ribs are gonna be perfect. All right, welcome back to Papa Hoff's Dirty Dishes. Today we've been working on the baby back ribs, and we are ready for the final product. So this just finished up. Let's go ahead and see how they look. Boom. Absolutely delicious, almost sticky. Very hot and very tender. Thanks for tuning in, folks. You can serve this with whatever meat you like. We usually go with tater tots. And enjoy your ribs. And remember, if the bone's not sliding out with no meat, then it's just not good enough. Thank you and have a great night.